we can start off with the Georgia Notre Dame game. So, on the scale of 1 through 10, how surprised are you that Notre Dame was able to win this one?
I actually had them winning the game, man. I just think right now with the dynamic that they have in their secondary, they can possibly shut down any passing game in America at this point in time. I mean, Xavier Watt and the boys. I mean, e- even when he was out towards the end of the game for a little bit as he got injured, he came back in and it was like you didn't even know he had left. They were doing their thing tonight. So I think with that and then just the firepower that they have in their running game is really they really started to show their depth after Jeremiah Love got hurt tonight too. I'm not really surprised. I'm more surprised at the fact that Georgia themselves has they just have not adjusted for their lack of catching. I think leading up to this game, they had like 36 drops or something like that, which was leading the country. And that's still their Achilles heel, right? Is like you see the pass downfield to Arian Smith, and then they get
Yeah.
more short yardage because of the penalty. But it was like I was kind of surprised that he actually caught the ball. But then you have Bell, their tight end, out there catching passes, and then he drops a crucial one downfield, right before halftime. So I'm more surprised that Georgia hasn't gotten their stuff together. But this really proves that to a lot of people, what I was saying is like it wasn't a Carson Beck problem this year. It's the receivers they've not been consistent enough to even compete, man.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing that you notice with Georgia in this game. It's like even when they got that pass interference call in the third quarter on that fourth down, which pretty much kind of kept them in the game, you still felt like it
Mhm.
was not going to be a guarantee that they were going to be able to capitalize off that and punch the ball into the end zone. And I was texting throughout the game with a homie because we both had money on Georgia. We had Georgia money line, and we're sitting here trying to calculate like how many possessions do they have left in this game. And you
Yeah.
you felt like after Notre Dame got that touchdown off the kickoff out of halftime, the game was already out of reach. Because one thing about Georgia that I've noticed this year is that, yeah, the offense is less dynamic as what it's been in years prior, but points have really come at a premium for Georgia. It's like there's a certain number that if they don't get to and the other team does, you know they don't have a shot at being able to win. And you just felt like with Notre Dame getting to 20, if they could have gotten the field goal or an extra touchdown, it was going to be nearly impossible for Georgia to win the game because I mean, not only has their wide receiving core been awful, but they haven't been that good running the football. They haven't really had an identity all year long. You know, their identity has
Yeah.
kind of been let's just try to find a way to survive in advance. And when you're going up against Notre Dame, you see I wasn't one of those people that were saying Notre Dame had no shot because of what they've done in years past. I felt like for Notre Dame, as long as they were able to play their game, running the football, they didn't have to overly rely on Riley Leonard to throw it. They were going to have a great shot at being able to win. And, you know, I felt like Georgia's defense played well for the most part, but you had the turnover before halftime. And then you had that weird sideline interference penalty when the dude bumped into the referee. I don't know what you would have done if you were Kirby Smart, but if I was Kirby, I would have cussed that dude out and sent him straight to the showers. You feel me? Because I felt like
Yeah.
that penalty took a potential touchdown drive off the board for Georgia. And you know they've
Yeah.
already have been struggling up to this point during the game to move the ball. So that penalty right there didn't really help them at all. And you know, the decision for Marcus Freeman to go for it on fourth down inside his own territory, I wasn't impressed with him going for it. I felt like you had to go for it. But what impressed me was the manner he went about it. You put the punt team out there, then last minute you use the substitution rules to your advantage. Georgia has to also get their
Yep.
guys in, and you end up getting the guy to step in the neutral zone. That was the moment that won this game to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think. not only was Georgia, they were clearly rattled in this game for how much misfortunes that they had, but that was just a whole culmination of like the whole frustration just in that penalty itself, and it cost them, right? So, I mean, I agree with you, man. There's so many good players on Georgia that you look up and down this roster, like Smell Munden completely took over for their defense today. And then you start going down the line of players like Dalen Everett had his moment, and then Malachi Starks was kind of, you know, in the game sometimes, out of the game other times. Same thing with KJ Bolden. You expected like all these guys to step up to the plate, and they didn't. Really and truly, I just want to call it out, man. Like when I look at Georgia, Cash Jones was like the best player on the field when he got the
Yeah,
ball in his hands, and this
yeah,
is a walk on. You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah.
shout out to Gunnar Stockton and what he did, but I think this just proves again that like the veteran of Carson Beck, if he was in there and healthy, it would have been different. And I
Against some
hate
of
the
those
fact,
blitzes, I definitely felt like he could have audibled out into something a little bit better. I agree with that.
yeah, yeah, he's young, as far as like his starting in his career, right? Like, this is a big start for somebody in his position that's never really took this many snaps in his career, and you expect him to go against I mean, I think they're the best secondary in the country. They have been all
Yeah.
year. So I don't blame Gunner, but then also on the other side, it's like he didn't turn the ball over a lot, which I can appreciate that, and I think that's a very good trade of his for moving on in the future. But on the other side of that, like we were talking about with Notre Dame, you know, the rushing game, obviously with Riley Leonard, and when Jeremiah Love tries to get back healthy, and then Jadarian Price had a couple big, like
Yeah.
heavy runs
They were
today.
killing them on the edge. Like the edge for Georgia for some reason this year has been their biggest Achilles heel. And I really don't understand why with all of the edge talent that they normally tend to produce.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like it's disappointing when you don't see those guys stepping down like KJ Bolden and Malachi Starks to help out with that, because that's where you think they would be in their most premier, position. But I could say this, man, if Notre Dame doesn't get their passing game together,
Yeah.
they're going against the number one Russian defense next week. I don't know if they're going to have as good as a time, but you bring in a guy like Bo Collins from Clemson and you barely use him.
Yeah.
And
Jump
and
ball,
that that
50-50 ball receiver. Just throw it up.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Riley Leonard has showed, and it's crazy, right? I don't know if you feel the same way, but like when he was at Duke, of course, we saw him use his legs, and he was a great running quarterback. But like he passed the ball a
Yeah, a
lot
lot more
more under Mike Elko than
and
he
more
is under
efficiently.
Marcus Freeman. Yeah, so I mean, we saw it a little bit tonight. Him starting to, I mean, he was throwing darts over the middle. I'm like, I like to see this out of Riley. Keep it going, keep it going, keep it going. And then you resort back to the quarterback keepers for the first
Yeah.
down. Then he starts feeling himself. Then he gets a 10-yard first down, and
But
it's like,
I feel like that's why Notre Dame won the game, though. Like, if Notre Dame was going to win this game, it wasn't going to be Riley Leonard being able to light up the stat sheet throwing the ball. I felt like Notre Dame had to remain true to who they were. It's like running the
yeah,
football, playing good defense, dominating on the line of scrimmage. And I felt like they checked the boxes for most of those things, but